The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell starts right now. Hey, Lawrence.
Hey, Jen, I'm going to go over that pardon stuff he did today, too. He's an odd guy to be drawing any attention to pardons at all.
Mm-hmm. Yes, no question about it. Normally, as you know, there wouldn't be that much attention on pardons quite yet in the first year of a presidency, even a second term.
Right, because those previous presidents have always been interested in getting either reelected or helping their parties advance their electoral prospects. And so it's the kind of thing you avoid. But of course, Donald Trump, more pardons than any president has ever thought about.
Yes, he's a record breaker in that sense.
Yeah. Thanks, Jen.
Thanks, Lawrence.
Thank you. Well, as we were just saying, the man who has abused presidential pardon power more than anyone in history decided to draw attention to that today by joking about pardons. The president who pardoned everyone who tried to overthrow the presidential election for him joked about pardons today. The only president in history to pardon 1,500 people who attacked the Capitol for him to overturn the presidential election joked about pardons today. And because he is a soulless, humorless person, it was a bad joke. The man who has publicly acknowledged that he's thinking about pardoning his old friend, Ghislaine Maxwell, a convicted sex trafficker, who was a co-conspirator of Donald Trump's closest friend, Jeffrey Epstein, made a joke about pardons today. The man who seems to want to pardon Ghislaine Maxwell after she was convicted of luring young girls into the home of a rapist and sex trafficker who ruined their lives, made a joke about pardons today. And he told us the two people who he would never pardon, and those two people are not his old friends, Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein.
The turkeys being pardoned today go by the names of Gobble and Waddle. When I first saw their pictures, I thought we should send them, well, I shouldn't say this. I was gonna call them Chuck and Nancy. But then I realized I wouldn't be pardoning them. I would never pardon those two people.
But he seems to want to pardon Ghislaine Maxwell. He would never pardon those two people, but he seems to want to pardon her. He would pardon Ghislaine Maxwell because she said to Donald Trump's criminal defense lawyer, who is now his deputy attorney general, that she never saw Donald Trump do anything wrong. Why is Ghislaine Maxwell now afraid of saying that same thing under oath in a congressional hearing? Ghislaine Maxwell's criminal defense lawyers have told the House Oversight Committee that she will take the Fifth Amendment in answer to every question if they subpoena her testimony. That means if a member of Congress asks Ghislaine Maxwell, did you ever see Donald Trump do anything wrong? She will not answer that question under oath now. She will take the Fifth Amendment. And so someone who will not make the same statement under oath to Congress that she has already made to Donald Trump's criminal defense lawyer is someone who just might have been lying to Donald Trump's criminal defense lawyer, who's now his deputy attorney general. It may be that most of what Ghislaine Maxwell said to Donald Trump's deputy attorney general was a lie. That's why she won't repeat any of it, not a word, under oath in testimony to Congress. If Ghislaine Maxwell commits perjury under oath testifying to Congress, the next Democratic administration would prosecute her for that crime. And she knows that. And her criminal defense lawyers know that. And then there's Chuck and Nancy. Donald Trump's crumbling mind apparently cannot retain the fact that Nancy Pelosi is no longer the leader of the Democrats in the House of Representatives and hasn't been for years. If Donald Trump's brain was fully functional, he would have said Chuck and Hakeem, meaning the Democratic leaders of the Senate and the House of Representatives. But Donald Trump is still living in the Chuck and Nancy years of his first presidency because he is in sharp mental and physical decline. And we now have a number for it. 39%. That is the measure of Donald Trump's physical decline since his first time in the White House, 39%. In an article published tonight by the New York Times, Katie Rogers and Dylan Friedman report under the headline, "Shorter Days, Signs of Fatigue, Trump Faces Realities of Aging in Office." The Times has documented the newly abbreviated schedule for the struggling 79-year-old man. Quote, in 2017, the first year of his first term, Mr. Trump's scheduled events started at 10:31 a.m. on average. By contrast, Mr. Trump in his second term has started scheduled events in the afternoon on average at 12:08 p.m. His events end on average at around the same time as they did during the first year of his term, shortly after 5 p.m. The number of Mr. Trump's total official appearances has decreased by 39%. 39% less Donald Trump. That's what we're getting now. Donald Trump was the laziest president we had ever seen in his first term. He is now 39% lazier. And he is now apparently struggling with a 5-hour workday. And of course, none of us have seen him do anything that in any way meets the definition of work during those 5 hours. The Times reports Mr. Trump appeared to doze off during an event in the Oval Office. And so we are now covering the physical decline and fall of Donald Trump. Last night, I mentioned Donald Trump's age a couple of times when I pointed out that you can see the 79-year-old man who gets very little sleep bewildered about how he is losing his grip on the Republican Party. And Eliza B. made a comment about that on Twitter saying, I'm a bit offended that Lawrence seems to imply that Trump's age is the problem. I'm only a few months younger than Trump, and I have never done any of the moronic things that he's done. And I was so glad to see that tweet by Eliza B. because it had been bothering me a bit that what I had been saying about Donald Trump's age and weariness could be taken the wrong way. And so I welcomed the chance to clarify my point to Eliza on Twitter this morning when I said, I don't mean to imply the number 79 is the problem. We all age differently, and Trump is a very weak-minded 79. Warren Buffett is a very sharp 95. And Trump can't understand a word Warren Buffett says about Trump's utterly insane tariffs.
I mean, tariffs are actually, we've had a lot of experience with them. They're an act of war to some degree.
That man is 16 years older than Donald Trump. And Donald Trump has not had 1 minute of his life in possession of the mental clarity and wisdom that Warren Buffett has at 95. And so, no, it's not the number. And thank you, Eliza, for forcing me to clarify that. There are people who are in full-blown dementia in their early 60s. We all age differently, and Donald Trump is aging just fine for someone who should be watching TV all day and playing golf occasionally, but he's aging terribly for a president. But Donald Trump at his best age would have been the stupidest president and most incompetent president in history and the most corrupt. A younger Donald Trump is not a better Donald Trump. Congressional Democrats have much to be thankful for this Thanksgiving, but next Thanksgiving, they will have much more to be thankful for. At least Republicans believe that, because next Thanksgiving, Republicans believe Hakeem Jeffries will be waiting to be sworn in as Speaker of the House the following January. The Democrats will control the House of Representatives by a larger margin than the Republicans control it now, and Donald Trump will be facing real investigations with real subpoena power in the House of Representatives about the biggest payoffs in the history of Washington corruption, which will mean that Donald Trump's presidency, as we know it, will be over a year from now. And Donald Trump's worst abuses here in the United States will come to an end a year from now. Everything I've just said is what current polls indicate will happen next year. And now we know It is what Republicans themselves in Congress firmly believe will happen, and that's why Republicans are quitting. Former Republican Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy said last night that he believes Marjorie Taylor Greene retiring from the House of Representatives is simply the first of many. He called her a canary in the coal mine and said that congressional Republicans are, quote, going to get a lot of people retiring. Punchbowl News, run by Jake Sherman, who has excellent contacts in Congress, reports that Republicans believe they have no chance of winning the House of Representatives next year. That's what Republicans believe, and they blame two people, Donald Trump and Mike Johnson. Quote, a few other GOP members messaged us over the weekend saying that they too are considering retiring in the middle of the term. Here's one particularly exercised senior House Republican, quote, this entire White House team has treated all members like garbage, all. And Mike Johnson has let it happen because he wanted it to happen. That is the sentiment of nearly all appropriators, authorizers, hawks, doves, rank and file. The arrogance of this White House team is off-putting to members who are run roughshod and threatened. They don't even allow little wins like announcing small grants or even responding from agencies. Not even the high profile, the regular rank and file, random members are more upset than ever. Members know they are going into the minority after the midterms. More explosive early resignations are coming. It's a tinderbox. Morale has never been lower. Mike Johnson will be stripped of his gavel, and they will lose the majority before this term is out. That's not a reporter summarizing what the reporter has found. That is a senior House Republican putting it in writing, in a text, saying members know they are going into the minority after the midterms. It's a tinderbox. Morale has never been lower. Mike Johnson will be stripped of his gavel. In other words, the senior House Republican who wrote that is a rational politician who can see that insane policies that hurt voters will hurt the party supporting those policies. You do bad things in government and you lose elections. And what that senior House Republican is saying is that virtually all House Republicans know this. The senior members, the junior members. And that's why it's a tinderbox. What they need to turn the tinderbox into a functioning congressional party is for a calming, steady leader to guide them. And they're stuck with Donald Trump. And so they know it's hopeless. And what is Donald Trump's relentlessly incompetent White House staff trying to do? They're trying to guide Donald Trump and the Republicans out of the tinderbox to political safety by simply having them completely reverse themselves on health care and embrace Obamacare. The New York Times reports President Trump, who has repeatedly denounced the Affordable Care Act as a disaster, is considering backing an extension of insurance subsidies tied to the health law that are set to expire at the end of the year. According to a senior White House official, Mr. Trump has not made a final decision, the official said. The tinderbox must have loved that, right? It's a way out of their problems, right? Punchbowl News reports that the Trump healthcare proposal was supposed to be rolled out yesterday, but is now paused. Quote, the fact that the White House was even seriously working on a plan caught Hill Republicans by surprise when news of it leaked on Sunday. By Monday morning, the White House was preparing to unveil the proposal before eventually backtracking amid resistance from conservatives and a general sense among Republicans that the White House was mismanaging the issue. It's now unclear when or even whether the plan could see the light of day. Get used to this. This is the chaos that happens in a tinderbox in the final year in power of a political party in Congress. There is chaos and there is confusion in that tinderbox, and there is no escape. And then today, the Wall Street Journal added this reporting, quote, Speaker Mike Johnson cautioned the White House that most House Republicans don't have an appetite for extending enhanced Affordable Care Act subsidies, according to people familiar with the matter, showing how hard it will be politically to stave off sharp increases in health care costs next year for many Americans. The message from Johnson in a phone call with administration officials came as President Trump's advisors were drafting a health care plan that extended the subsidies for 2 years. Pure chaos. Trumpian chaos and Mike Johnson incompetence and confusion. That's it for all of next year. And the tinderbox gets hotter every day. The tinderbox is hotter tonight than it was last night. You don't need predictions from me about next year's elections, and I am more than reluctant about making those predictions, but it is worth knowing that Republicans in Congress now believe they are going to lose. And it is worth knowing what Donald Trump and his White House believe. They believe they have to do something. And what they came up with was doing more of what President Obama did, which Donald Trump has always condemned. And so there is the confused, sometimes sleeping man in the Oval Office trying to figure out a way out of his own rhetorical policy traps that he set for himself with his own personal repeated condemnations of every policy choice that could possibly help Americans afford health insurance. And through it all, Donald Trump leaves open the possibility of pardoning his sex trafficker old friend, Ghislaine Maxwell. And through it all, Donald Trump revels in finally being able to make the most money he has ever made in his life, not in real estate, in the presidency, in cryptocurrency, in the next Congress. If Hakeem Jeffries is Speaker, Jamie Raskin will be the chair of the House Judiciary Committee, and Congressman Raskin will be in a position to subpoena records that he might want to see for investigations that he might want to conduct. And we know that Congressman Raskin has already led Democrats on the committee to issue a new report on how Donald Trump has enriched himself this year during his presidency. Congressman Raskin issued this statement saying, Donald Trump has turned the Oval Office into the world's most corrupt crypto startup operation, minting staggering personal fortunes for him and his family in less than a year. Meantime, Trump has been pardoning criminals who commit fraud through crypto and dismantling the regulations that protect legitimate American investors. We don't know where all the money is coming from yet, but America has never seen corruption on this scale take place inside the White House. This report shows how Trump's so-called pro-crypto agenda is just one more Trump family self-enrichment plan built on pay-to-play deals and corrupt foreign interests seeking secret channels of access and influence. Congress must expose this. Congress will expose this when Hakeem Jeffries is Speaker and when Jamie Raskin is Chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. And that's exactly why Marjorie Taylor Greene doesn't want to stay in Congress. She doesn't want to be part of that Republican minority when Democrats win back control of the House. Here is what Marjorie Taylor Greene said is her vision for what will happen to Donald Trump in the House of Representatives after the next election and her reasons for not running for re-election. Quote, I do not want my sweet district to have to endure a hurtful and hateful primary against me by the president we all fought for, only to fight and win my election, while Republicans will likely lose the midterms and in turn be expected to defend the president against impeachment after he hatefully dumped tens of millions of dollars against me and tried to destroy me. And so, the only person in Congress who is predicting that Donald Trump will face impeachment after next year's congressional election is a Republican who can no longer take the heat in the Trump-created tinderbox. Leading off our discussion tonight is Congressman Brendan Boyle of Pennsylvania. He's the top Democrat on the House Budget Committee and a member of the House Ways and Means Committee. Congressman, I'm sure you've been following the various possibilities that the Trump White House was working on to try to solve the incredible surge in the cost of health insurance that is coming, both for people on the Affordable Health Plan, but also for the rest of us in the private health insurance market.
Yeah, we've been hearing about their bigger and more beautiful and more wonderful healthcare plan for exactly 10 years, 10 years now, since Donald Trump first said he would repeal and replace Obamacare with something bigger and something better. And it's always somehow 2 weeks away. And we are still in those 2 weeks. But, you know, Lawrence, I think in many ways we actually saw over the summer what really is the Republican healthcare plan. And that is cut healthcare for millions to pay for tax breaks for billionaires. Let's not forget, over the summer, and what Donald Trump used to call the big, beautiful bill, they cut healthcare for more than 15 million Americans. Cuts to Medicaid, cuts to the Affordable Care Act. The list goes on and on. That, in the end, is their healthcare plan. It is cut after cut after cut, make it more expensive for the American people.
As we go forward, you know, the behavior of Republicans in Congress becomes more and more interesting as an indicator of what it's like inside that tinderbox that has been described to us by a senior House Republican. And I know you frequently get questions. People ask you, you know, what are the Republicans really thinking about this? And I've always wondered, I mean, you have a right to wonder, are they all crazy? Because they do crazy things and they behave collectively crazy publicly. But reading what that senior House Republican sent to that reporter sounds like a perfectly rational politician reading the situation accurately.
Yeah, I would say, Lawrence, I've actually thought a lot about this because I was there for the first Trump term, and I've seen the evolution in the House Republican caucus. Most of the folks that I first served with were pre-MAGA Republicans. Now a good 3/4 have actually been elected since Donald Trump was elected the first time and are truly MAGA Republicans. So there has been a dramatic shift from Trump 1.0 to Trump 2.0. But the other thing I would say is that I think it's less a matter of craziness and more a case of fear. Most of my House Republican colleagues live in fear, not of their general election electorate, but of their primary electorate. And in that electorate, even though Donald Trump's approval ratings, as we sit here right now, are the lowest that they've been at any point he's been president, either the first term or the second term. It's an average of about 39 points now and continuing to drop week by week. And yet in those Republican districts, Donald Trump still has approval rating of about 80% or north of that. So for Mike Johnson and every member on down, they continue to live out of fear and act out of fear that Donald Trump will do to them what he just did to Marjorie Taylor Greene.
So the affordability idea has finally penetrated the Trump White House. I can't possibly figure out what conceivable affordability policies that the Trump White House could possibly offer. They played around with the idea of, which is a good one, of extending the subsidies of the Affordable Care Act. They can't get that done. What's left?
Yeah, and let's not forget that, and again, I keep coming back to what he used to call the big, beautiful bill, because it's important that we don't forget it, because that is the reason why, in many ways, we're in the situation we're in. Let's not forget that at the end of last year, things were getting better. Inflation was back down toward 2%. And yet Donald Trump becomes president, and specifically because of his policies, things became more unaffordable, instead of becoming more affordable. We saw over the summer, the bill that they passed purposely raises costs for working Americans in order to subsidize tax breaks for billionaires. The Joint Committee on Taxation estimated this is the first tax bill in American history that makes the bottom 30% of Americans poorer as a result of that legislation, with most of the benefit going to the top 1%. So the American people get it. Things are unaffordable. This president is a big reason why.
Congressman Brendan Boyle, thank you very much for leading off our discussions tonight.
Thank you.
And coming up, Donald Trump's so-called border czar, Tom Homan, was reportedly recorded in an undercover FBI video taking $50,000 in cash from undercover FBI agents last year. Our next guest wants to know, where is the $50,000 in cash now, and did Tom Homan declare it on his tax return? Senator Adam Schiff joins us next. After MS Now's Ken Delaney and Kara Lenig broke the news in September that Donald Trump's so-called border czar, Tom Homan, was recorded on undercover FBI video last year, accepting $50,000 in cash from undercover FBI agents, the question became, what happened to the cash?
What became of the $50,000 in cash that the FBI paid to Mr. Homan in a paper bag, evidently?
Senator, as Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche recently stated, the investigation of Mr. Homan was subjected to a full review by the FBI, agents, and DOJ prosecutors. They found no credible evidence of any wrongdoing.
And that was not my question. My question was, what became of the $50,000 in cash that the FBI delivered, evidently in a paper bag, to Mr. Homan?
Senator, I'd look at your facts.
Are you saying that they did not deliver $50,000 in cash to Mr. Homan?
Senator, as recently stated, the investigation of Mr. Homan was subjected to a full
Different
review
question.
by the FBI agents,
That's a
by
different
Department
question.
of Justice prosecutors. They found no evidence of wrongdoing.
That's a different question. What became of the $50,000? Did the FBI get it back?
Mr. Whitehouse, excuse me, Senator Whitehouse, you're welcome to talk to the FBI.
The report to you, can't you answer this question?
Senator Whitehouse, you're welcome to discuss this with Director Patel.
Did Homan keep the $50,000?
As Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche recently stated, the investigation
never mind.
of
Now, Senate Judiciary Committee Democrats Adam Schiff, Sheldon Whitehouse, and Richard Blumenthal have filed a Freedom of Information Act request to the Justice Department demanding, quote, all communications between White House officials and Department of Justice or FBI employees related to closing this investigation, all records reflecting and any video or audio recordings of Tom Homan interacting with undercover FBI agents, including accepting money from such agents, all records reflecting Department of Justice or FBI approval of the disbursement or use of the confidential funds delivered to Homan as part of this investigation, all records reflecting an audit or accounting of the confidential funds delivered to Homan, as well as Homan's tax returns. Joining us now is Democratic Senator Adam Schiff of California. He's a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee and a former federal prosecutor. Senator Schiff, what normally happens with this kind of cash in undercover operations like this run by the FBI?
Well, there would be a follow-up if there's a prosecution where you would make sure that the money was retained so you could enter it into evidence during a trial. Sometimes the $50,000 might be in marked bills. I remember working on a case involving corrupt LA sheriffs way back in the day when I was a prosecutor, and it involved marked bills that were later found sequestered within the drywall in this deputy sheriff's home. So you want to be able to prove that you provided the money. Now, if you've got video of it or audio of it, you may not need marked bills, but it's an important part of the evidence. But also here, where the Justice Department dismissed the case for reasons it's never made clear, the question is, did they ever get the money back, or did he just get this $50,000 bribe gift from the FBI? And we should be able to get answers from the Attorney General on that or the Director of the FBI. But that requires that Republicans join us in doing serious oversight. That requires the Judiciary Committee demand on a bipartisan basis answers to those very basic questions. They haven't been willing to do that. So Senator Whitehouse, Senator Blumenthal, and myself have now made these FOIA, Freedom of Information Act requests. My experience in the first Trump administration, when they likewise stonewalled oversight, is sometimes FOIA is a quicker process to get answers because you can go to court to enforce them than even congressional oversight, particularly here where Republicans aren't willing to do it.
Senator, one of the answers that the Attorney General could have given to Senator Whitehouse's question about this is it never happened. There was no FBI undercover operation investigating Tom Homan. There is no video of him accepting $50,000, and so there is no $50,000 to talk about. That's an available answer if it's true.
That's absolutely true. That's absolutely right. Another available answer is we will get you that information. We will provide that to this committee. If there's an audio or a videotape, we will turn it over. We will let you know whether he paid taxes on this. If he kept the money, we will give you those answers. That, too, would be acceptable if she actually didn't know the answers. Now, I think she does know the answers. If you played a little more of that tape, you would have seen what she did with respect to just about everyone on the committee, which is when she got questions she didn't like, she turned to personal attacks on the different senators. But yes, you're absolutely right. She could have made a denial. Even Tom Homan, when he was originally asked about this on Fox, didn't deny getting the cash. He was willing to say he didn't believe he did anything illegal, but he didn't rule out getting the cash.
Senator Schiff, we have to squeeze in a commercial break. When we come back, I'd like to discuss Donald Trump using the FBI now to try to investigate members of Congress for simply reciting the law publicly. We're going to squeeze in this break. We'll be right back with Senator Schiff. Donald Trump has ordered the FBI to investigate everyone who appears in this video.
I'm Senator Alyssa Slotkin.
Senator Mark Kelly.
Representative Chris Deluzio.
Congresswoman Maggie Goodlander.
Representative Chrissy Houlihan.
Congressman Jason Crow. I was a captain in the United States Navy.
Former CIA officer.
Former Navy.
Former paratrooper and Army Ranger.
Former intelligence officer.
Former Air Force.
We want to speak directly to members of the military
and the intelligence community
who take risks each day
to keep Americans safe.
We know you are under enormous stress and pressure right now.
Americans trust their military.
But that trust is at risk.
This administration is pitting our uniformed military
and intelligence community professionals
against American citizens. Like us, you all swore an oath
to protect and defend this Constitution.
Right now, the threats to our Constitution aren't just coming from abroad,
but from right here at home. Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
No one has to carry out orders that violate the law
or our Constitution.
We know this is hard and that it's a difficult time to be a public servant.
But whether you're serving in the CIA,
the Army,
or Navy,
the Air Force,
your vigilance is critical.
And know that we have your back.
Because now, more than ever,
the American people need you.
We need you to stand up for our laws,
our Constitution,
and who we are as Americans. Don't give up.
Don't give up.
Don't give up.
Don't give up the ship.
Senator Adam Schiff is back with us. Senator, we have reports indicating that the FBI is trying to arrange interviews with each of your colleagues in that video. Should they agree to those interviews? There's nothing forcing them to do that.
Well, I leave it to them to decide how they want to handle this, but this is plainly intended to try to intimidate them. We have the astonishing situation where the president, the Pentagon are saying that if you state the law, if you state what the Constitution provides, that's how somehow going to subject you to investigation, prosecution for sedition, court-martialing. It's absurd. But the whole point of it is also a dangerous effort to try to silence and intimidate. And I can tell you, knowing all of these six who made that video, they are not about to be silenced or intimidated. They have faced far greater in their careers than these idle threats from the president or the Pentagon. But nevertheless, it's, part of the abuse of the Justice Department to go after the president's enemies. He's now abusing the Pentagon to go after his enemies. He's abusing the FCC to go after his critics in late-night comedy. He's using the Department of Education to go after his critics at universities. This is a broad societal effort to silence and intimidate the opposition. It's what dictators do, and I'm just so proud of the patriotism of my colleagues, Mark Kelly, Alyssa Slotkin, two of our most respected colleagues. I think all of us in the Democratic caucus feeling an enormous sense of pride in them and support for them.
So the FBI, prior to Donald Trump's inauguration, was engaged in serious work every day. There's certainly a dozen minimum FBI agents now who've been dragged off, probably a couple of dozen, dragged off whatever they were doing to go talk to members of Congress about something they said publicly. They could just sit in their FBI offices and study the video. It's all there.
That's exactly right. And that's why this is all about intimidation. It's not a serious investigation. There's no court or court-martial in the world that would find fault, I think, with my colleagues for stating the obvious, for stating the law. But, it's designed to set a chilling effect. It's designed not only to chill these particular members, but to send a message to other members of Congress, House or Senate, that you got to watch what you say, because you'll be investigated. You could be threatened with prosecution. You might have to retain counsel. We will essentially, put you through the ringer if you dare stand up to this president. But, I could tell you, my colleagues and I feel this only stiffens our resolve to stand prouder, stand stronger, push back harder against this lawless administration.
Senator Adam Schiff, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
And coming up, Elon Musk destroyed the United States Agency for International Development, which has saved millions of lives around the world. Bill Gates called it the richest person in the world, killing the poorest children in the world. And now Elon Musk is trying to avoid testifying in a lawsuit about what he did to USAID. The New York Times' Nicholas Kristof joins us next on that. Will the richest person in the world have to testify under oath about what he did to the poorest people in the world? Former employees of the United States Agency for International Development are seeking the testimony of Elon Musk in their lawsuit over their firing, saying that Elon Musk, quote, canceled government contracts, reduced the number of USAID employees and contractors, and closed USAID's headquarters, thus violating the Appointments Clause and the separation of powers. Former USAID official Dr. Atul Gawande, who joined us on this program last night, reported it is estimated that USAID's dismantling has already caused the deaths of 600,000 people, 2/3 of them children. That's 400,000 children dead. In his latest article for the New York Times, columnist Nick Kristof writes, one of the scenes that has pained me the most while covering the demolition of the U.S. Agency for International Development was of a warehouse in West Africa, stocked with millions of doses of medicines to prevent river blindness, to deworm children, and to cure a debilitating parasitic ailment called schistosomiosis. The medicines in the warehouse had been provided free by pharmaceutical companies, but the United States then canceled funding for the mass drug administrations that are crucial to defeating these neglected tropical diseases at scale. Joining us now is Nicholas Kristof, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and columnist for the New York Times, who has been covering this crisis created by Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Nick, your latest reporting on this takes us into ever more detail about the disaster that is now less than a year old, but is the worst disaster ever to strike in the history of this kind of program in the United States government.
Yeah, I mean, look, President Trump has done many, many terrible things, but this is probably his most lethal single policy. As you said, more than 600,000 people who have died, 2/3 of them are kids. And, you know, I think of a little boy in Uganda I met, Freddie, who was starving to death because the U.S. made peanut paste that we had provided for children like that was sitting in warehouses in Georgia and Rhode Island. The U.S. had purchased it, paid for it, and was paying $10,000 a day to store it in the U.S. rather than shipping it out to keep kids like Freddie alive. And, you know, that's what you see over and over. And I wish Elon Musk would come out and see the consequences of his behavior. And, you know, there are many, many shameful things this administration has done, but killing kids on this wholesale basis around the world strikes me as particularly odious.
Nick, what would Elon Musk or any of us see if we were lucky enough to be able to accompany you on your investigative reporting that you've been doing this year in Africa?
Well, for example, in rural Liberia, I came to an area where the U.S. had provided ambulances to save the lives of women who were at risk in childbirth. It had been a priority for Republicans and Democrats to reduce maternal mortality. So the U.S. had provided 2 ambulances, had provided diesel fuel for them. And I visited a village where a 21-year-old mother of 2, Yama Freeman, had she'd been in labor. She was in obstructed labor. They called the ambulance and they said, oh, sorry, the U.S. has cut off the fuel. And so we have these 2 ambulances donated by the U.S., but we don't have the diesel. And so if somebody can send diesel to us, then we'll go and rescue Yama. And, you know, so the strongest young man in the village put her in a hammock, put Yama in a hammock, and ran on foot down the path toward the hospital. And they were shouting up at her as they ran, you know, Yama, hang in there, hang in there. And she bled to death on the way. And, you know, that is repeated over and over. And, you know, I would also just say that Elon Musk has the resources that, you know, he earns as much an interest on his wealth every year that he could make good and save far more lives than he is costing. And if he would like to do that, then I have a suggestion. In that column that you mentioned, Lawrence, I know that we have a fundraising campaign to try to address the costs that USAID has imposed by being closed. And those drugs, for example, you mentioned. Now, my readers are going to be stepping up, and we are going to distribute them to those kids so that they won't develop river blindness. 75 cents a child, and we have a 4-to-1 match with the help in part of Bloomberg Philanthropy, which is matching all donations, and there are other matches. So, Elon Musk, if you're watching, this is your chance to not exactly redeem yourself, but to mitigate the consequences of the devastation that you have caused worldwide.
Nick, is there a website people should go to for that, to make that contribution?
Yeah, it's, thanks for asking. It's ChristophImpact.org, Christoph with just 1 F, ChristophImpact.org, and you can get that match. And you can choose one of 3 charities, 2 international and 1 here in the U.S. And, you know, in the face of some really terrible things happening, we can maybe do something together to push back to the darkness and try to make this a little bit better world.
Nick Kristof, thank you very much for your reporting. Thank you for all the work you're doing. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Lawrence.
We'll be right back. Tonight's last word is ChristophImpact.org.